I believe number 2. If you read this book, it seems that everyone got their job because they knew how to play bridge at Bear Stearns. That seems to be the criteria for being hired for a $10 million job. And there seems to be no other skills. In fact, I could, what I would say is these people who have all risen to the top, they're all great salespeople. Basically, they don't, in fact, you yourself said they're not traders. Jimmy King was not a trader, he knew nothing about trading. And he's running a major Wall Street firm. In fact, they're...
it makes 90% of its money from trading.
From trading, okay. And this is quite shocking, totally shocking. And it's not shocking because the firm fell apart and went out of business. And so, you know, it all makes sense. If you've got a complete picture of the background from this book, which you should read, the whole scenario makes total sense. And I believe Ralph Ciaffi, how do you pronounce the guy who's running the hedge funds, was a salesman also. All these people were salesmen. And so his criteria for running these major hedge funds, which all went out of business and eventually dragged Bear Stearns down with it, is the guy who knows how to sell things. Now, he didn't know anything about trading, and he actually made a very embarrassing comment in the book at one time that no trader would make, and let me look at my notes. You know, he said something like, "We don't believe what the market is telling us." Now, I'll give you the exact quote. "Yes, we don't believe what the markets are saying. No trader from Trading 101 has this done. And the markets are always right." And like, you know, he didn't believe that. So he loses all the money in the hedge funds, what a surprise. Anyway, so I'd like to ask you, we'll move on. There was also a major lawsuit, the Kwiatkowski versus Bear Stearns. Bear Stearns was sued by a lot of people, shockingly. Before that, the Bear Stearns was actually investigated by the federal government, the Barons, AR Barons, their trading operations, and there was a big fine, and I want you to discuss that for a second. And it seems to be a criminal enterprise. Ciaffi was indicted in June 2008 when he took it, and did he go to jail?
Trial is September.
Hasn't happened. Okay, so there's some evidence that Bear Stearns is being operated by like a criminal enterprise. And once again, as I said, I was reading it, it looked like a script from The Sopranos as opposed to, you know, what you would think would be a reputable Wall Street company. So there was a lot of criminal activity according to the government, and probably much more than was ever found. So can you just comment on that, and how prevalent is that?
And you may find this hard to believe, but in my experience, the Bear Stearns was actually less of a criminal enterprise than some firms. It did have its brushes with the federal regulators and lawyers, and there's tons. If you go to Pacer, which is the online legal system that helps you figure out these things, I mean, they're party to tons of lawsuits, as are all sorts of Wall Street firms. And any time you interact with clients, brokers, you're going to have lots of lawsuits. Bear Stearns, had less of a role in some of the big, outrageous litigations that faced Wall Street over the years. I mean, when it came to the whole thing with research analysts and investment banking, Bear Stearns was actually sort of a minor player in that. Maybe because they had a very small investment banking operation and a very small research operation. It would have been, they certainly had a role, and there are plenty of emails that detail, these outrageous things that the bank would force the analysts to do, but because they were smaller in that regard, they didn't have that big a role. In AR Barron, that involved, their clearing operations. They were one of the Wall Street's biggest clearing operations, and there were a lot of people who thought that they cleared for brokers that were unreputable, disreputable, and they should not have been doing that. But as a matter of course, the fine was relatively small in the AR Barron case, $38 million, which doesn't seem like a whole lot anymore. Their biggest fine was in this mutual fund market timing case, where they paid a fine of $250 million. But by and large, on Wall Street, they play by the rules. Now, you may not like the rules, and you may not like how they game the system, which they definitely do, because they line the pockets of the people who make the rules. But by and large, you're dealing with, I mean, that's why I think, as shocking as it is, there's only been 2 indictments so far in this whole matter, which has cost us trillions of dollars, and that is the 2 guys who ran the Bear Stearns hedge fund, and I think that's going to be a hard case for the government to prove.
In fact, one thing that raised my eyebrow, speaking of paying people, which no one may have asked you, is a case that the Kwiatkowski versus Bear Stearns was a major case where it was sued by a very, very rich who had, he claims they didn't him adequate advice, etc., etc. And then Kwiatkowski won at the lower level court, and he won in the appeals court, and there was the highest level appeal court in the federal case, and there was a reversal, and in which I found interesting, because you don't usually get a lot of reversals at that level. The lower 2 courts said one thing. And also Kane was actually really positive that he was going to get that reversal. Now, you never know that in a legal case. And my question, and this raised both my eyebrows, is do you think he or Bear Stearns bribed those judges?
Wow, this seat is hot. Yes, I feel like a frog in the water, a bucket of water on the stove. You turn the heat up, and I'm not going to jump out because it gets warm gradually. I found no evidence of that. I mean, the way Jimmy portrayed it to me was he felt that this was an incredibly important case for brokers on Wall Street and Wall Street firms, and that Wall Street brokers, the CEOs of Wall Street firms, should be kissing his butt every day for the rest of their lives for saving them all on this, Prince Kwiatkowski case. Henry Decay, as he called him, because it involves, and I'm not a lawyer, but it involved, him giving his brokers direction, them following his direction, the direction not working out. It worked out for a long time. He made a ton of money, $500 million, and as Jimmy says, he made a round trip. He started with $25 million. He was up $500 million. He ended up at $25 million. He then sued Bear Stearns. Jimmy was always convinced that that Wall Street could not lose this case. He was the only one that wanted to pursue an appeal of the conviction, and all of his other partners wanted to settle with the guy. He said no, and he turned out to be right, and he was like giddy for a week after that. And as far as bribing judges, I don't know anything about that, but anything is possible.